Our next and final story tonight is about something which affects all of us. You, me, our families. Rising costs, soaring food prices. Things are getting more expensive and there's no denying that. It's a story we've touched upon multiple times on this show. Inflation, most of us are talking about it today. Our cost of living is rising. It's a marker which affects the overall quality of our life. But today, I want to talk about the impact of inflation on one particular generation, Gen Z. If you're watching me right now, you may know someone from this generation. In fact, you may be raising this generation or are part of this generation. Gen Z, basically anyone born after 1997 is part of this generation. They are also known as the Zoomers. So why am I today focusing on them? Because the next decade will be shaped by Gen Z. It is the largest generational cohort in history, I would say. And they too are deeply worried about the economy. So much so that they are struggling with financial anxiety. I am not saying this, a new survey is. A global survey finds that Zoomers want to inspire change. They are aware of global issues and geopolitical conflict. They are climate conscious. They seek not just money, but meaning in their jobs and tasks. Unfortunately, they are navigating an uncertain economy. And these Zoomers are deeply worried about the state of the world. This survey studied more than 14,000 Gen Zers across 46 countries. And what it found was a conflicted generation. On one hand, they want to drive change. And on the other, they are struggling with the cost of living crisis. Here now are some figures. A third of Gen Z respondents worry about the cost of living above all concerns. Around 45% live paycheck to paycheck. And just more than a quarter doubt that they'll retire comfortably. They're thinking long term. They worry that they won't be able to meet their expenses. I know what you're thinking. Don't we all have these concerns? An unstable economy impacts all of us. But it is particularly harsh on the youngest generation. Remember, they are still trying to figure out what they want to do. Many are yet to find their so-called calling in life. And don't forget, unlike the generations before them, Zoomers are experiencing such uncertainty perhaps for the first time. The pandemic was their watershed moment. They had to grow up. When they realized that things were not as rosy as they thought, the economy took a hit. Dream jobs fell through. Personal milestones were delayed. Epiphanies followed, both in personal and professional lives. And then began the era of the Great Resignation, followed, of course, by quiet quitting. But the pandemic forced Zoomers to rethink their financial priorities. It pushed retirement planning to the top of the list. But the financial uncertainty made it harder to save for a rainy day. Another major hurdle is debt. Remember, Gen Zers are entering adulthood. They would be heading into the workforce from university. They're struggling to pay off their student debt or establish a solid credit history. For instance, in the US, the average Gen Zer owes roughly $20,900 in student loan debt. In the UK, student debt figures exceed $45,000 for undergraduate borrowers. Now, I'm not saying these things are harder for younger people, but there is a reason why plenty of research is being poured in to study this specific generation. Because it is our future. If they decide to exit the workforce, it will affect us. If they struggle to find jobs, it will affect growth across quarters. If they can't repay loans, well, I don't need to tell you why that's bad news for everyone. Gen Z has inherited an uncertain economic climate. Many experts say this generation is accustomed to spending beyond their means, and they may not be saving enough for the future, not because they don't want to, but because of rising expenses. Once again, inflation. And all this eventually has an impact on their mental well-being, and that is a bigger concern. Another survey suggests that 83% of Gen Zers are battling milestone anxiety, essentially the pressure to hit social milestones, be it getting married, having children, or even buying a house. All this chips away at their self-confidence. So yes, this uncertain economic climate affects all of us. Even as we gear up for the holiday season, we are reading about looming recession fears. All I'll say is, if you see a younger member of your family, a co-worker perhaps, or a friend struggling, do give them a patient hearing. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.